Hey loves, it's Britt, and in this video, I wanted to talk about the natal aspects Jupiter square or opposite to Uranus. So, these hard aspects between Jupiter and Uranus, I feel like are some of the most impulsive and restless aspects that we can have in the birth chart because the energies of Jupiter, which is all about expansion and the future and optimism and joy, meeting with Uranus, which is rebelliousness and also a future oriented planet in the natal chart. It's showing our inventiveness or our eccentric energy. So when these are forming a hard aspect to each other, we have people who really like to be on the go and have a hard time sitting still and having patience. It's like they want everything, like all their goals to happen right now. And in a way, sometimes it's almost like a childlike energy of wanting everything to happen now, wanting to go fast, wanting to drive fast, and then even potentially like there could be dangers due to impulsive actions, even especially more so if this is also contacting the sun or the moon in any way, or Mercury or something like that. But even just with these aspects on their own, we have someone who is incredibly restless and needing to slow down before reacting and before acting. So it's like the impulse control needs to be worked on in order to have more success in life, because Jupiter does deal with the outer successes of life as well, and where we're really lucky, and we can make ourselves unlucky with these aspects by reacting impulsively. Now, the interesting thing about it is their intuition is actually very good. So these are quite the intuitive or psychic people, but they don't often have the patience for the future vision to manifest. So they can have a better time with like seeing someone else's future and seeing their best course of action, and like being able to actually like see that. Like this is like spiritual vision. This is like higher consciousness energy that they have. But when it comes to themselves, they can be quite impatient, and like I said, like this is like one of the most impulsive impatient aspects that I've ever seen in a chart, where like they just expect everything to happen now. And a part of it in some cases can actually be a little bit of like egotism, like a little bit of sometimes I've seen this, it's not going to be in every case, but sometimes it is a little bit of like entitlement of like, like it can be coming from a bit of a place of ego, of like a high opinion of themselves, a high like self-importance, and like this should have happened for me already kind of energy, like coming from the ego. It's almost like the king of the castle, and it's kind of like, why have my peasants not gone and, got me that I've wanted, because I'm so deserving of it now, and it should have happened yesterday. And now this isn't going to be in all cases. If Jupiter is in a more egotistical sign, like Leo or, a fire sign, like you have to look at the whole chart. You could have incredibly humble people that are very service oriented with these aspects, but like sometimes, because Jupiter can have a tendency to be a little bit pompous, right? So we can sometimes see with these aspects someone who is not very down to earth and not very much like able to relate to people on a one-on-one level. There's an air of superiority. Now, that's not going to be in all cases, but definitely you can see that with people with these aspects. And it's almost like the misfortunes that happen to them, it's kind of like the fall from grace. It's like they have to get real with themselves and realize that these high opinions of themselves that they have are not founded on real reliability of themselves. Like you have to look at the Jupiter Saturn balance in everybody, right? Because someone with a strong Jupiter that doesn't also have a strong Saturn is all talk, right? And so balancing the Jupiter energy with Saturn energy can really help these people to be more physically successful because they truly do have the right ideas and their intuition is on point. Like I said, this is one of the more psychic aspects that you can have, but it's like a faulty planning in between the intuition and the actions. There's something that's gone amok here, and it's because of, like I said, that it's like Uranus impatience is like an electricity running through your body that like you have to move and you can't sit still. In some cases you will see these people, like, even you think Jupiter and Uranus are an outer planet, you're still going to see these people acting like very restless and like they have to be like tapping on something, and it's like, yeah, the thing they need more than anything is like not to just sit around and meditate because that would be too boring. But if there is some form of like active meditation or sports, they can actually be really good at sports. They can have good reflexes because they're quick. They're already, very active energies, right? And so some kind of like walking meditation or moving meditation where they can like be in a meditative state like Tai Chi or something, but still physically moving because they're going to want to rip their hair out of their head if they have to sit there and actually meditate without moving. But like meditation is necessary with these aspects. And they're quite the entertainers though. They like this. I don't want to sound like I'm being too hard on you guys because like I like love you guys. I love your energy. There is something that is like you can't look away when you see people with these hard aspects of Uranus and Jupiter. Like they are the life of the party. They will say things that are downright hilarious. Like they do not give a F about anything. They don't care about your perception of them. They just tell it like it is. They're some of the most blunt people around. They can be hurtful. Don't expect them to sugarcoat things. Don't expect them to tell it to you in a nice way, especially, depending on the signs of this. They definitely really don't have as much like of a social like conscience. Like they don't do things for the sake of other people's views of them. Like they go to the beat of their own drum. These are like the classic rebels, like they're riding up on their motorcycle, they're late, and they're not dressed appropriate to the occasion, and then if someone says anything to them, they're like, hey, screw you, and so that's not going to be every single person with these aspects, but like even if they repress it and like they don't say that out loud and they're not like that personality, there's a part of them deep on the inside that like is that personality, okay? And they've just repressed it. So there's definitely a part of them that is like not caring about fitting into this world. And there's also like this generational curse breaker aspect to it. So like they don't want to subscribe to the beliefs of their upbringing. There's something very contrary about their energy. It's like if you believe this, they're going to believe the opposite because that's their right to choose that. And like, so they can kind of have this rebelliousness about their family, their upbringing as well, where like as a reaction to how they grew up, they kind of like embody the opposite belief or energy. Like if they came from a family of like, all these like business people, and then it's like they decide to be an artist or something, like it's something like that. Or it could be the opposite. Maybe they came from a bunch of artists in their family line, and then they decided, well, no, I'm going to be an accountant or something, right? So it's not like exactly like they're always going to be this rebel, but like they're going to rebel against the people around them, especially with the opposition. The opposition is far more about like relationships where the person, rather unconsciously actually, is like acting out against their surroundings and the people with them and their spouse or their siblings or the people they work for. There's like this, like if somebody's doing that, they got to do the opposite, and they do it very unconsciously. So it ends up showing up as more relationship difficulties with the opposition, I think, because the opposition is always like kind of a relationship energy. And it's also in some ways a bit easier, the opposition. The square, the tension is so embedded, it's so deep, it's so frustrating, and it's almost like harder to break the cycle and like figure out what's actually going on with the square. The square is like more frustrating, but potentially even more of the genius, like the intuitive psychic abilities, can come out through the square because the opposition are too busy fighting everybody and being contrary and, like that. So I mean, both are quite similar. That's why I'm doing them both in this video, but like that's like the differences that I've seen. So the books will say about these aspects that gambling is not a good idea. But I have personal experience of someone who has this aspect, the opposition, in a very close orb and has done very well with gambling. But then I've also known people with the square who have lost huge amounts of money gambling, and it's been a very damaging experience. So, it's probably a good idea to say, like the old textbooks would say, that yes, gambling is not favored. But I think with the opposition, it's like, you're either really lucky or you're really unlucky. And sometimes the luck is like actually like you're the star, like all the attention's on you. And it's like unbelievable the miracles and the luck that you can manifest. And then other times it's just not there and you don't have that magic touch. And it's kind of like you never know. They're unsure of like when they're going to be that lucky. So there are themes to do with luck. Like, so especially with the opposition, we're going to see like potentially some major falls from grace at some point. Like it's like they either get all this honor and prestige and respect and luck and they like win the lottery literally, or it's like the opposite. They've fallen from grace. Everybody's disowning them. Everybody's like, it's like they're like the society's looking down on them, or at least they can feel like that too. And then they also don't care. They're like, whatever, screw it. Or it does bother them on some level if they have some other Saturn aspects going on that make them more self-conscious. But yeah, it's incredible, like the bigness of their personalities, like the how well known they can be, sometimes in a negative way, right? Like the reputation can be damaged, or it can be like a flip-flop. Sometimes it's damaged and sometimes they're like revered and like looked up to as like this god person. And see, this might sound like such a contrast, but like the bigness of the energy of Jupiter in a hard aspect to Uranus is like, with Uranus, there's always an element of shock. So the shock might be that like they start at the top and end up at the bottom, or they start at the bottom and they end up at the top. Like we don't know what the shock is going to be, but it's going to be something shocking. And with these aspects, it is kind of like something to do with society at large in some ways. So if you have these aspects, I feel like the remedy is like allowing yourself to be yourself and allowing yourself to be that eccentric, like rebel, and then it's like when you just let yourself be yourself, you don't have to like rebel because you're just being yourself. Like it's almost like the rebellion comes from the inability to like fully own who you are. And when you can fully own who you are, you don't need to rebel. Then you can just chill and relax. And that will like massage your nervous system. That will like calm you and help you relax and help you be able to have better impulse control if you just let yourself be yourself. And it doesn't have to be a fight. What if being you in the fullness of you and sharing your beliefs, a lot of this is about beliefs too with Jupiter. What if that didn't have to be this like huge shocking thing? What if this was your inherent right to just be yourself, right? Those kind of beliefs, right, anchored in, can really calm and soothe the person with these hard aspects, because a lot of this energy that we've talked about is their reaction to a constricting early upbringing or society that they grew up in. It's like, so as a rebellion against that, it's like these qualities come out, and they come out in these difficult, frustrating ways. And sometimes people will say, you are a difficult person. It's like, you don't just go along with the crowd, right? And these are very good qualities. But what if you didn't have to rebel against anything? What if it was your inherent right to just be who you are and believe what you believe? Okay, then you don't have to argue with people about it so much. Then you don't have to like steal the spotlight in that way that the attention on you is negative, right? If you could just be your authentic self, it doesn't have to be this big show. It's like What if that was just a God-given right for everybody? And what if you were perfect as you are? Even if you're different than your family, even if you're different than your spouse, even if your beliefs that you hold near and dear are so different than everybody around you, what if that was perfectly okay and you didn't have to convince anybody of anything? It wasn't a battle. You didn't have to, like, fight against everybody. What if that was just a God given right that you can be unique and be yourself and believe what you believe, right? But even with that, there's still an element of these aspects that does want to fight for their beliefs. So, like, you can see this in people who, like, are highly opinionated and, like, have a large following being, like, controversial. And that's a good way to express this, right? Because there is something very controversial about you and what you believe, and, like, you can actually attract a lot of attention because of that. So I would say that's one of, like, the higher aspects, along with the sudden intuitive insights and the genius that can come through. And that's going to come through a lot more if you do allow for some space in between the things that you're doing. And I really advise that you have some space, because this is a combination that can show recklessness, which can show danger because of impulsive action. So you want to take a moment, you want to take 5 minutes or longer, preferably, before you make any big decisions, especially regarding the signs and the house placements of the Jupiter and Uranus in your chart, okay? So, yeah, I'd love to know your experience of these aspects if you have them in your natal chart. I'd love to know what it has been like for you. Sending you all the love, and thank you for your requests, you guys. Keep those requests coming, and we'll talk soon. Bye.